Hi, Sabina.
How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Good. Okay, you know what? I'm just going to get right into it. Like, we actually really don't know each other,
Yeah.
and we've never done this, obviously.
Other than hanging out in a parking lot
Yes,
for
we
like
have,
15 minutes. Yeah.
but it was one of those instant connections I felt. I don't know if you felt the same way. It was
Totally.
just like this amazing energy exchange between us, and I love it. And when we started this podcast, I thought, you know what? This is one authentic woman, and I need to have her on my couch. So
Yeah. I love it.
here you are. So, what would you say is authenticity to you?
To me, it is truly about being the truest version of yourself and allowing your choices and your beliefs and your values as an individual to come through without the ebb and flow of the outside world, which is a sometimes very fun and sometimes very ugly place to be.
It's difficult, isn't it?
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
I really get influenced by other people's
Yeah.
opinions. So I'm just learning now, later years in my life, like to really, if it doesn't feel good and it doesn't sit right, then it's not right for me, right? And it's okay to not agree with someone else, right?
Yeah.
Because I think that's what makes us so beautiful and individual. And,
Truly.
yeah.
And I think if we really recognize that in each other, then that's where we get the good spots to grow. And that's when the goodness really comes in, because my way of doing things, I know, is not the same as other people, but the lessons and the awareness I can bring in from someone who's doing it differently, which I believe is kind of in the chef world. That's the only way we learn and grow, is because,
By the way, Kim's a chef.
yeah.
So
Yeah. So of course,
you didn't bring cookies.
I didn't. I actually made some today, and yeah, we ate them all. My kids and I. I thought about bringing them, and I was like, oh no, I'm not going to make this about me today.
No, it would have been about me.
Yeah. So next time, but then you'd have to share.
True.
This way, you can just I'll just drop you off a stash for yourself, and you don't have to share with anybody. Because like if you think about a recipe, and a recipe starts with some ingredients, your life and your lifestyle starts with some ingredients, but it's what you add to it individually that
makes it your
really,
own.
that really makes it your
I
own.
like that analogy.
Yeah.
I like that analogy. Okay, not knowing very much about you, I do want to learn a lot about you, but I'm going to go a little deep. What's been the most raw kind of life-defining moment for you? And I'm sure,
Oh, there's probably lots. How long do we have? I truly believe that I am a rapid learner of lessons, and I never was before. I've had kind of different very defining moments that have allowed me to peel back another layer of life. In the year that I separated, I was also let go from 2 jobs in 1 year. So I separated, was let go, I was sued, and I lost a house, all in a 12-month calendar time frame. A lot of it having absolutely nothing to do with my doing, other than the separation. I did participate in that, or the downfall of that. But it was a matter of like recognizing that I was not going the way I was supposed to be going, and I needed to make some changes in my lifestyle. And then from then on, it became one lesson after another. And I truly believe now at this stage in my life that as I learn those lessons, my most recent lesson is that my comfort in vulnerability is my gift to humanity.
Yes.
I am unbelievably comfortable talking. Can I swear?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm unbelievably comfortable standing in my own shit.
Good for you.
And owning what it took to get there, and the lessons it takes to get out of that.
Means you've done your inner work.
Yeah,
right? And
lots of it. Like I have a whole team of people.
we both, sister.
Some days good, some days bad, but I think understanding that I'm not meant to stay in that spot, and I'm supposed to like figure out the lesson. And I truly believe that the lesson will keep showing up until you learn it. And it just gets uglier and uglier and uglier until you learn it the hard way. But I would say, like, oh gosh, those real raw moments. There was a moment when I had just separated, and I was probably about 6 months in. I got a new house, and I had painted the house, and I got everything ready, and I was so excited, and my kids weren't there. And I had never been without them for any long period of time. And all of a sudden, I had nothing to do in the house. I had nothing to fill the space. And it was either I found something to fill the space or I just stood there in the space. And my next door neighbor at the time used to say to me, you need to stop reaching out, stop sending someone a message, stop filling that, like stand in the moment of being by yourself and figure out how to go through that door. And I was like, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I thought she was full of crap the whole time. And then the moment when I was actually in that space, I was either going to walk out the door and go and cuddle with her next door because I was so alone. And I recognized that. And I was like, nope, I'm just going to stand in it. And I had the most ugly cry in a little puddle on the floor that you could ever imagine a human being having. And then as I was lying there, I was like, okay, like I participated in this. I made this choice to separate from my marriage. I made this choice to move here. I'm not going to choose to stay in this ugly space. Like, pick yourself up. Like, let's go. Kind of figure things out. And I did from that moment on. But it was a very defining moment when I had to stop filling it because I used to be an advocate for retail therapy. So anytime I wasn't feeling loved or I wasn't feeling happiness or feeling nurtured, I would go and buy something. And then then I slowly started to realize what I was doing and recognize. And I was like, okay, my bank account can't handle this. So what am I going to do? And there would be times when I needed that feeling and I needed to fill that void. So I would go to Winners because I love the Winners, especially up in the North End. It's got the best stuff in it. And I would fill a cart full of stuff and find all these things I liked and get all this excitement. And I'd park the cart at the front door and I'd walk to the car. And I'd get in the car and I'd drive away.
Wow.
And then slowly I put less things in the cart. And I was like, oh, okay. And slowly the connection of I was filling the cart instead of taking the time to fill the void in myself.
That's powerful. And
Yeah.
Kim, I can say when I separated and I came to here, I didn't know how not to fill every single minute of my life. Even and the worst is for me is when I get in the car. I have to call someone because the quietness and all those voices would start coming up. And that's where it's like, if we actually embrace those moments, that's where the growth happens.
Totally.
Right.
So you're saying that.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting because unless you recognize the void, we've become such a society of filling that space. We fill it with anything and then we justify it. We're emotional shoppers. We're emotional eaters. We have all these things that we do to fill that instead of just feeling the emotions.
Do you find now that you've worked through all this and you've learned to kind of be okay in your own space that you actually enjoy being alone? Because I was going to a movie a couple of weeks ago and a friend called and said, I'm going to join you. And I was like, oh, really? Like I wanted to go by myself.
Yeah.
Right.
Totally.
So learning, has that happened for you where you're
absolutely. And I find I've almost become borderline minimalistic in so many aspects. I no longer fill it with things. And I really, really, I could say I've almost gone the full spectrum, become addicted to being alone, where if I have an opportunity to be in my space by myself, I absolutely love it.
So you've got 2 children?
3.
Okay. What are their ages?
They're 17, 16, and 14.
Wow.
So
I've got a 16-year-old. So
yeah. Grade 12, grade 11, and grade 8.
Wow.
So yeah.
And they're with you full time?
No, I share custody with their dad.
Okay.
Yeah.
And can I ask this? Are you in a relationship now or?
No, not really. I've stayed single almost completely for 8 years now. I dated casually in that on and off, one kind of a little bit more serious. But the biggest thing was like that filling the void. I didn't get out of my marriage to fill a space with someone else. I did it to figure out my own stuff and who I was in that, because I truly believe I'd compromised so much of myself when I got into my marriage to be in a relationship, because I thought that was going to be well, you're going to have kids and you're going to be married and everything's going to be wonderful and we'll all live these perfectly happy lives.
Thanks.
And then all of a sudden the reality, and we had a great marriage. We had been a great run, 3 great kids. And we realized we did like the big things in life really well together. But then when we actually just had to be together,
You're like, yeah.
where like there was barely any conversation, there was things like that. And I kind of realized, you know what? I compromised myself to get into this. And I know he did as well. So we looked nice and shiny to objects like for each other. But then when we actually had to be in a relationship, we couldn't figure out quite how to be in that same space.
Do you have a lot of regrets when you look back at that relationship?
No, not at all. I don't think I have any. You know what? So my dad died of a brain tumor when he was 57. So this would be like 17 years ago. And when he died, so my dad was a newfie and he was a lover of life. He had a list of things he wanted to do when he graduated or when he retired, because you can go to university for free when you retire. And he had this whole list of things. Every couple of days, he'd be like, hey, Kim, did you know that? I'm like, no, didn't know that, Dad. He's like, I'm going to add that to my list. So he had this whole list of things he wanted to do because he grew up in this little tiny house in Newfoundland with 7 brothers and sisters. And it was probably not even the size of this floor, this house. And he was the oldest. So there wasn't a lot of extra opportunities, but he was a big thinker and loved learning. So when he passed away, I took that as kind of my, I guess, opportunity to live life to its fullest, or my expectation I put on myself was now I needed to live life as big as humanly possible because his got cut off too early and he didn't get a chance to.
Wow.
On the flip side, my ex, who I call my husband because he was my husband.
Right.
Ex sounds kind of negative. So
I've always said that. We got to come up with a different sort of
husband. Yeah.
Husband. I like that.
Although there's no for wife.
Yeah.
I can't figure out what that would be.
Yeah.
So his mom had passed away and he realized that if he couldn't control something like that and that loss, he wanted to try and control as much as he could of things. So I went one way, he went the other way, and then we couldn't bridge back because we just had this belief system ingrained in us on how we wanted our lives to go. And we couldn't figure out how to navigate that with each other. Yeah. So, but I truly believe my kids who've now landed are really learning to be the greatest versions of themselves.
Isn't that beautiful to see? Like, yeah, when you see your kids getting things that we didn't get at that age, right? And it's wow, that's amazing, right?
And I always say like teenagers, right, I believe they're my favorite group of human beings and my least favorite group of human beings. They're my favorite because they have all the information right at their fingertips. They're my least favorite because they have all the information right at their fingertips.
Yes.
And it's how they choose to use it. But the conversations we have are constantly like learning something new, trying something new, just like a daily adventure, which I love that for them.
And I think too, we can learn so much from them. Like we really can. But I think sometimes with my son, I'm in that control mode because that's how I was brought up. And he'll point that out to me going like, I understand why you're doing this because this is how you were raised. And I'm like, whoa, kid, like, like you're therapying me right now. Like, you know, So this leads me to my next question. What do you think makes a good friend?
I think a good friend is someone who doesn't have an expectation on the friendship, accepts you exactly who you are and how you show up. And if you can't make it one day, okay, you can't make it. I'm not going to let my feelings or disappointment change how I expected or what I expected of the day or our friendship. And I'm just going to accept you in that space. I think that's one of the biggest things we miss out on, especially as women. We do not do ourselves a favor in so many ways that we almost try and manipulate or bully the situations around our friendships. Well, like you bailed on me this time, so I'm just not going to talk to you next time. And yeah, totally do.
Like,
You know
let's
what? If
just
you bail on
say-
me, that's go ahead, bail. I'm okay on my own
Right.
to figure out my own stuff, and I'll do my own stuff in that space.
But I also think that this is like why this podcast and show is happening is like, why can't we just say, you know what, Kim, I'm not feeling it today. Like I actually can't be around you today.
Yeah.
And I think you'd probably appreciate that way more than me making up some bullshit lie to say, oh, you know, I got to go get my kid, blah, blah. But we do it because we don't want to hurt the other. But I think we're actually in the long run hurting people more.
I agree. I agree. And hurting ourselves, because then you actually have to pay attention to the lie that you told around it.
Right.
Which is funny. Mark Twain once said, if you never lie, you never have anything to remember.
Exactly.
True. Because then you don't have to think about that. I was thinking about that a lot lately, is that realness. I was saying, I've started working at the ARC, which is a mission services.
Yes.
And I absolutely love it. And I couldn't figure out why I love the community so much. And it's because they're so unbelievably real. They don't care. You're either getting a good answer that you're going to feel good about, or you're not getting a good answer. And you're probably not going to be, but it doesn't matter to them.
Don't you respect it more though when someone's like super honest? Like you need those very honest friends that'll be like, yeah, that's not looking so good, or you're just not like ship up or shape out.
Yeah.
No, how does that go?
Ship up or shape out.
Yeah.
Shape up or ship out.
Shape up or ship out. We're both getting it wrong. Yeah. You got it right. Yeah, like you definitely need that.
Totally. And I think in so many ways, having that person show up that way for you is a gift.
Yes.
It's whether or not they can take it, or they take it. Some people take it so unbelievably personal, which speaks to a lot of their level of security within themselves.
Right.
And I think that's one of the, what we kind of as a society have done in an unskilled way, is put that judgment around all of that, and those friendships, and that expectation, and that worthiness. That's a big piece.
I agree. Okay, so I want to ask you this. If you could bring everybody into one room that you have ever met in your life, dead or alive, and you could only look for one of them in the room, who would you look for?
Ooh. Only one, eh? I would say my dad, for sure. Although I believe he's everywhere I go. And I kind of speak to them as in my team. So my team that I carry around with me, which sometimes people look at me a little strange if I'm like, yeah, I'm learning the lesson. Okay. Like I got it. Can you lay off a little on the sound? And but I would say probably my dad, because I know he would have a conversation about my kids, because my oldest is so much like my dad. It is borderline alarming. He is my oldest is a lover of life. He is unlike any 17-year-old I have ever encountered. He rocks to his own tune, and he does not care what other people think. He loves his salmon colored shorts, his Hawaiian golf shirts. He has a permed mullet.
Mullet.
Yeah, he is in a category all of his own. And he actually said to me in the summertime, we were walking on the beach early one morning out in Prince Edward Island, and he said, he was like, Mom, you know what? Like I realized I am a lot more like you than I thought. And I actually always thought he was going to be the most like his dad, because he had so many of his dad's traits, which had we stayed in a relationship, he probably would have ended up very much more similar to his dad in his traits. He said, I've learned that I'm so much more like you because I don't understand why people don't get along and why they have to fight about things. And I think they could all just be friends and just accept who, like, they all want to come to the party. Okay, everybody, let's come to the party. Like, I don't know why we have to pick and choose our friendship groups. Like, we can all bring something to the party. And I was like, yeah.
Now, would you have a question like that you really want to ask your dad? Like if you...
No, I don't think so. I don't think, no, because I think what I know about him or believe about him are answers enough, and how he led and the values in which he had. I'd love to just have a conversation with him. I'd be like, hey, like, how am I doing with the kids? Like, they're pretty great. And they turned out really good. And he would probably say something like, you got to tell Ethan to keep his head down when he's playing hockey, or keep his do this kind of thing,
Right.
some coaching, because he was always the sports coach kind of thing. But no, I don't think I would ask him anything, because I truly believe that the gifts that he gave me in life have come forward in my life, and the values and what he stood for. Like, he was there's very distinct moments I remember growing up about him being like, when we were in the Ottawa market one day, he went and bought an apple for a homeless fella, and he brought it over and gave it to him. Or he was always like that, very kind, very big on community and people. And like, when I was in grade 8, I had a party at my house, and one of the older guys, like grade 9 or 10, had come, and he had taken one of my dad's beers. And instead of my dad getting mad at him or yelling at him, he made him promise he had to do some form of community service.
Oh,
So he
wow.
had to like go around and shovel like the driveway in the neighbor's driveway and things like that. And so he was very much a give back kind of guy, never really a disciplinarian that way. And I think that those traits have allowed me to really move forward, either as a boss or as a parent or in some leadership role, in a different manner than being like the person that yells.
Right. Which is amazing, right?
Yeah.
That you're able to take that forward into your own like child rearing that
Yeah.
you're doing now. So
Yeah. I have yelled though. Let me just say.
me too. That's probably like one of my do you have any regrets?
Um, no, no. I would say no, because I have taken all of those moments as those lessons. So even those things where 5 years ago I might have had a massive regret around it, um, I truly believe those choices, and like, some were not good choices. Let's just call that right out. Those bad choices recognizing those have allowed me to move forward and make better choices, knowing
What
that
would you say is one of like a choice that you made that you consider to be bad?
Uh, you know what? In many ways, I didn't handle um, some things as well as I could have, in whether it be being a boss. Again, coming from the world of being a chef, once we started to have the Food Network and all of that, we glorified the role of chefs and made them into rock stars. It didn't change the job on the ground, but it changed everyone's perception of the job. And for a time frame of that, it became such an ego-driven role for me, um, that that ego directed some choices that I made around like my lifestyle and things like that, which weren't necessarily a good choice. Maybe drinking a little couple of times too many, maybe partying a little bit too much, things like that. But it was the lifestyle that I was part of.
Right.
And it took a lot of hitting the bottom in many cases to kind of go, okay, you know what, I need to get back out of that and figure out what that was.
So how did you pull yourself? Like what would you consider was your most rock bottom moment in your life?
In my life, in my career, there was a moment where, and it was funny because I just messaged the guy a couple of weeks ago that I shared this moment with, and I don't even know if he's ever seen the message, but I guarantee he has no clue of the impact he had. And there was one day he had come back, we were working together, and I was in the middle of separating, had no clue. Like, I was so scared, but didn't recognize that all of my behavior was coming from a fear base. So that fear was funneling into anger, was into funneling into everything else. And I was doing everything to hide that fear humanly possible. And And he had come back to my desk and he was like, you got to get your shit together. Like, what is going on with you? Like, what? Like, I don't even understand what is happening right now. And I was in the moment, I of course got very defensive. I was like, you don't even know what you're talking about. You don't know my reality, blah, blah, blah. And it was actually that moment when I sat with it that I kind of went, oh my gosh, like I do need to. Who am I right now? Who is this person? This isn't me. I don't behave this way. I don't act this way. Like that goes against everything that I believe in and everything. And I was so in that ego role and I was losing control. And I didn't know how to not be in control.
Right.
Because there was so many things about my job and my career that I was in charge of. And it was my job to be in control of all of them. And then all of a sudden there was so many things that I was not in control of and I didn't know how to balance that out. So it took hitting that complete lack of control and loss to recognize that, okay.
Do you find that as we go on in our life and we get old, a little bit older and whatnot, that the control, we kind of let go of it? Because I think our personalities are similar in the sense of type A, strong business women. We have to have everything a certain way. But I'm finding what I used to be and what I am now, it's okay. Like you don't have to be good at everything. Yeah. And you need to learn, for me anyways, that I'm learning to bring in the people that are good at that and go, right?
And knowing who's in what lane.
Exactly.
And I think that was probably one of the biggest moments in what later became the next chapter is I had believed what I thought I was planning as my next venture in my career. And I had lined everything up and I was on my way to, it was the day I was selling my house. So I had told my team, okay, I picked this date, which was my dad's birthday and my granny's birthday. And I was like, okay, team, like set us up here. Like we're ready to go, set us up exactly where we're meant to be.
Right.
What I thought where I was meant to be and what my team thought, two very different things. So I had gone in to work that day and I was like, okay, I'm on my way home to accept offers on my house. I had already purchased a house in another location. Everything was all lined up in my head as I believed, and I was in control of all of it. And I got a message from the boss saying, okay, stop by the office on your way out. Okay, no problem. Stop by the office on my way out. And they handed me a pink slip and said, there's not a spot currently for you anymore with where the dynamics of the company come. From a business standpoint, I understand where they were coming from. Mm-hmm. From my standpoint, I was like, okay. So I went and I got in the car and I drove home and I was like, holy crap. Okay, what am I going to do now? Right. I don't have a clue what to do, but I truly believe from that moment on, I had absolutely no choice but to relinquish all control and let it go and give it to God. And my faith became so much deeper in that moment of knowing that, okay, you know what? I'm not going to control this anymore because I would have never banked on getting handed that. Like it was so far out of anything that anybody would have thought, even the people that had the company. But it was something they had to do from a business standpoint. And I drove home and I was like, okay, well, okay, team. So apparently where I'm supposed to be and where I thought I was supposed to be are not the same place. So what am I going to do now? And there was a waiting period where we had to be out of the house. So I still sold my house. Mm-hmm. Got a great offer, far beyond what I thought, which set us up really well. Okay, that was step one. So I had to go back and tell them I wasn't going to buy the house that I had already purchased. Wow. Holy crap. Okay, I'm not quite sure how to handle that one. But then that ended up getting handled and I later got sued for that. But again, that was a business thing. And then we had nowhere that we were going to go or a plan on where we were going to live. So single mom with 3 kids. I now had a job, no longer had a job, and I had just forfeited on a mortgage. So I couldn't get another one. I had no job. I had nothing in place. So I every morning got up and said, okay, I don't know what the next step is. I have no way of solving this. So you have to figure this out and you have to tell me what direction to go because I have no choice in this.
You always had a strong faith?
No,
Yeah.
totally not. I grew up going to Catholic school, and then in grade 10, I had this Catholic teacher who kind of debunked everything I believed about the Catholic faith. But then I ended up in a world religions class at the same time. And that really opened my eyes to all of the different religions and that belief system.
Mm-hmm.
And I would have never had it, never, ever had a conversation and used the word God ever. I was about the furthest thing from ever having that conversation until I would say until around the time my dad passed away and I had kids. And then when I took my yoga teacher training and realized it wasn't the same story as I would have believed before.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I had no choice other than to give it to someone else to be in charge of. And then my faith got deeper and deeper and deeper. And I would say I'm not religious by any means, but I am deeply spiritual and have a very deep rooted faith in something bigger than me because I had no choice. And then I got to 3 days before I was supposed to close on my house. I had a spot come open with a place to rent.
Oh, wow.
And it was like I stressed about it. And I was like, I can't spend all of my time doing this. I need to just carry on, find the things I love, sink into that, keep packing my house up.
Right.
And just have faith knowing that I'm a good person. I do good things. And I just was not on the right path.
Isn't it amazing how life ends up working itself out, right? I could talk to you forever. I know you've got so much to say and I love it, but the last question I'm going to ask you, I need you to close your eyes.
Okay.
And I want you to tell me, I need to find my prop here. And okay, let's make sure this is the right way. Okay. The very first thing that comes to mind when you open your eyes. And you can go ahead.
Beauty.
Love that.
There's a moment when I was in a yoga class and I looked up and I was like, oh my God, there's me. There is me and I know if I grow my hair, I'm not me. If I dim my light, that's not me. And I know now that that's my job, is to shine on all of those extra pieces because of all the darkness that I've carried. And I was able to find the light in all of that.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for being here.
We could just talk all day.
I know.
Right?